As California and the world opens back up from COVID-19 quarantines, lockdowns, closures, or whatever the hell just happened, there's no doubt that perhaps the biggest casualty of saving lives has been the destroyed livelihoods and perhaps lives lost for small business owners and employees in America. Recently, Forbes reported nearly 100,000 establishments that temporarily shut down due to the pandemic are now out of business. Wall Street Journal reported COVID-19's toll on U.S. businesses, 200,000 extra closures in the pandemic's first year. And CBS News reported 9 million U.S. small businesses fear they won't survive the pandemic. But perhaps one of the biggest questions raised and still yet to be answered by this crisis has implications that could change the entire future balance of freedom and civil liberties in the U.S. and the world. It's the question of whether citizens should be subservient to the best judgment or maybe whims of bureaucrats and politicians, or whether your government is ultimately an instrument of and compliant to the electorate's will. And when it comes to enforcement actions, we're seeing the entire globe is testing the limits of what power does government actually yield to cancel civil liberties, partially or even utterly, in any kind of emergency, let alone a health alert that may have a whole lot of debatable circumstances. Now, you may not know that proposition is being put to a major test right now and right here in Ventura County. And by the looks of it, the implications of what happens in Ventura County today could well foretell the future of civil liberties for all of America in the face of the next proclaimed health crisis, which many say is sure to come, if not already planned. At the heart of the controversy in Ventura County lies Mrs. Olson's Coffee Hut. Mrs. Olson's is an Oxnard local favorite for breakfast and lunch, located at the Channel Islands Harbor, just 1 block from the beach. The restaurant was founded in 1974 by Corinne Olson, who named it for her mother, Helen. In 2001, it was bought by Tom Brimajon. Brimajon, a former Los Angeles police officer who served in the Marine Corps after 9/11, used to play a recording of God Bless America at midday Sundays when he was on the premises. Mrs. Olson's grew to a larger premises and enjoyed initial success and local notoriety. Esquire magazine voted it a top breakfast spot. But by 2017, the Brimajons were getting older. And after suffering some health problems, Tom and his wife had taken out just about all the mortgage loans they could and were at risk of losing it all if they couldn't get some young energy to help take things over. That's when they asked for their son, Matt, to move to Oxnard from the East Coast and take the baton managing the restaurant to keep it afloat. For the next 3 years, Matt Brimajon kept the show on the road, enough to keep the family business open and popular with the locals. Then COVID hit, and Governor Gavin Newsom ordered all restaurants shut down, along with gyms, salons, and thousands of other family businesses, except of course dining rooms needed for meetings with his cronies, or salons for elite congresswomen that were in need of a fast styling. But some Ventura County businesses wouldn't comply, and Mrs. Olson's was out front. After initially agreeing to close for 60 days and using that time to remodel his establishment, Matt Brimajon decided the family business couldn't take any more red, and he reopened Mrs. Olson's in defiance of county health mandates directed by Robert B. Levin, Ventura County Public Health Officer. It wasn't long before Ventura County started upping the ante and levied almost $500,000 in fines on Mrs. Olson's and similarly other establishments who couldn't get in line. Brimajon remained defiant and still kept his doors open. And as he told me in a recent interview at Mrs. Olson's,
the charges that they put against me, those have been dropped. The eviction, they also tried to evict me because my restaurant sits on county, they own the ground rent. and then the leasing company leases from the county, and then I have my contract with the leasing company. Well, the county forced the management company to evict me.
They really went to war with you on this.
Oh, 100%. Oh yeah, every day. And I had to stay here, nonstop because I never knew who was coming to my door. I didn't know if they're, what days I had to be in court. Every day there was just coming after me nonstop.
On December 22nd of 2020, Mrs. Olson's Coffee Hut lost their restaurant license. And while none of the restaurant's neighbors at Channel Islands Harbors were serving diners on site, Brimijan decided to continue serving indoors and out. But by January, the County Board of Supervisors had had about enough. Dr. Robert Levin filed 18 lawsuits against several restaurants and gyms in Ventura County, aimed at shutting many of them down altogether. By contrast, neighboring Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties had not had any similarly broad crackdowns as of January. In walks Rhonda Baldwin Kennedy. Rhonda Baldwin Kennedy is a litigation attorney in the 26th Congressional District in Ventura County who ran for Congress in 2020 against Julia Bromley. She lost, but that's a whole other story. And regardless, Baldwin Kennedy is sure to be back in the race in 2022. But in 2020, Kennedy got a call from one of her campaign supporters, John Franco, about fines and mandates that were damaging his business, Coliseum Boot Camp in Oxnard. Kennedy took the case on and pursued what she believes was a pivotal discovery strategy to play the county's hand. She moved to depose Health Director Robert Levin and ask him under oath what the specific statistics and data were that he has access to in order to declare such drastic mandates as to close businesses down without compensation. Kennedy claims that it was at that very point in time that Ventura County started dropping the fines and dropping the lawsuits against its small business that were under the gun. But as it was, more and more businesses started to reach out to Baldwin Kennedy and ask for her help getting relief from the mandates and fines. That included Matt Brimijan. But here's the next twist of this story, and it's really become the future of the story, even as the legal cases finally simmer down or come to some sort of resolution. Eventually, Brimijan started to connect with other trammeled business owners in Ventura County, and as he tells it,
Yeah, well, Brave started just based off of me talking to several other business owners that weren't open, that wanted to be open, didn't understand what was going on, and they try and separate everybody, right? They try, that's what they call it, social distancing. They're trying to socially get everybody away, when in fact the disease, it should be physical distancing, right? But they use social distancing because they don't want anybody speaking to each other. So,
right.
But anyhow, there's about 8 or 9 of us that were talking on a regular basis to see what we could do, and I had remained open. And then at that point in time, I had seen Dave Folds from Cronies. They're great guys, and they kept their Agora store open and to fight against COVID. And Barbara and Jordan from the Pizza Cookery in Thousand Oaks, they had been open. So I'd met them and sort of started talking to them about why they were doing it, and then we all had a common, kind of a common goal, just to stay open until we were proven that we were doing wrong. And I had gone to Godspeak Church. I've never been to church in my life, and a bunch of the guys.
Pastor Rob was there.
Yeah, and Barbara was there, and Jordan, and a bunch of my customers that had come in here that that really kind of, I guess, what would you say, encouraged me to stay open. They went back, so I went up there, and I heard Rob speak. The first time, my first day in church ever in my life, and he had talked about staying open, and he announced my restaurant to the people of the church, and then after listening to him speak, I was motivated. To stay open because I saw in his church, people were sitting shoulder to shoulder, no masks, and it's hard to find a group of people like that during that time, right? Because you couldn't find like-minded people, and so that was very motivating to me.
They wanted us to stay apart, but we got together. Together, they formed an affiliation they named Brave. businesses representing American values and enterprise. The website proclaims, Brave is a grassroots group that formed in January 2021. Finally, this grassroots group of business owners, customers, and supporters said, enough. We have a right to make a living. We have a right to do business. And Brave was born. The group seems to have legs. Their meeting often boasts 200 plus attendants and some rock star rebel speakers, such as Pastor Rob McCoy of the Godspeak Calvary Chapel in Thousand Oaks, who publicly waged his own battles with authorities over keeping his church's prayer service. And now perhaps because Brave is now organizing recall petitions of select members of the Ventura County Board of Supervisors, their meetings have even recently drawn attendance from County Supervisor Matt Levere, who braved his own chance to talk to a group that had previously been agitating to have him recalled. Perhaps due to the rapidly growing muscle of Brave, or perhaps to just make things right, in late spring, Supervisor Matt Levere reached out to Matt Brimijon, and they spent hours in meetings at Mrs. Olson's to attempt to square differences and diffuse the mounting hostilities.
And this was a matter of putting food on the table for their kids, for their employees' kids, and that they wanted to defy those orders. And I get that. I have 2 little kids. I know the pressures that I feel to put food on the table for my kids. But on the other side, I was hearing from a lot of business owners who felt the opposite. They wanted to comply with the orders. They were that concerned with the public health situation on the ground at that time, which was dire. And we can disagree on that. You may have different feelings. I agree. At that time, in my view, it was a dire situation, especially in our healthcare system. And they were coming to me saying, Matt, we're doing the right thing. We're closing down. And what are you going to do to support us? We are losing customers and clients to businesses that are staying open. We're never going to get those customers and clients back. You were creating... Ever. I'm just telling you what I heard.
So what have we learned today about authority and freedom in Ventura County that we didn't know a year ago?
At the end of the day, the government works for us. We don't work for the government. People
Absolutely.
get that flipped. They think that the government is in control. Well, they're not. They're not in control. We elect those people to go there, right? So we can hold them accountable for their decisions. And it seems for so long, nobody's held them accountable for their decisions.
It's going to show that, we're a republic and the people truly do hold the power. And I think that, local government, state government, and even federal government will start listening to the people and realize that we just can't say, oh yeah, we're all shutting down. You don't have a say. We're going to take your businesses, without just compensation. And, I think they're going to think twice and before they do another closure. I think they're going to realize that, in Ventura County, we're not going to just sit around and take it. We're going to fight back, whether, we hold our rallies, we do our protests, but also we're also going to be taking it to the courtrooms.
A month ago, all they wanted to do was just do everything they could to bury me, and now they just all want to let it go.
As soon as I could, I voted to dismiss those lawsuits. As soon as I could, I voted to have the business licenses reinstated for the businesses.
Whatever the outcomes may be of this historical test of authority in Ventura County and the world, one thing might be said for certain. We sure live in interesting times. For Straight Talk Ventura, this is Bruce Whitey reporting.